Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Everybody is connected. Good. So, good morning to all our friends listening to this new live event. And this is part of the Art of Dubbing series. So, today we have guests concentrating their business in Africa. So, we are going to talk about the emerging markets. So, I'm going to ask our presenters to introduce themselves quickly. And after we start with the discussion. So, Caroline, would you like to go first?
I will go first. My name is Caroline Mbindyo-Koroso. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm head of Kenya and Nigeria at TransPerfect Media, and I have over 25 years in the industry as a producer and in localization.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Claudia?
Hi, my name is Claudia Mohr. I'm coming to you from Cape Town, South Africa. And I'm a recent mergers and acquisitions partner to TransPerfect. And I'm a business consultant for the area. And I've also been in the dubbing and localization industry for 15 plus years.
Perfect. Jacques. So, we have two Jacques here. So, it's a little bit confusing. So, Jacques V.
So Jacques V, nice to meet you, everybody. So I'm in charge of business development in Africa, out of Paris, but traveling a lot. So I spend more time in Africa than in Paris. A little bit new to this cinema industry, but I've been in the media for the last 35 plus years. Very, very happy to be here today.
And you work at TransPerfect, obviously.
For sure.
Great. So we have a lot of subject to cover today. And let's start by talking a little bit about the interaction between film production and post-production. So recently, I had the pleasure of going to Nairobi for the Kalasha film market. After that, I went to Cape Town for the MIPCOM Africa, and I've been also to Nigeria this year. So I noticed something. I noticed that some countries are more prepared because of the post-production. They are more prepared for localization. Let's say that I noticed that in Nigeria, where the production is huge, they do more than 2,000 films a year. The post-production is a little bit the weak point of their industry. So they are not so prepared for the localization because they don't have all the elements. Caroline and Claudia, you can maybe talk 2 minutes about that. Caroline, you want to start because you are also taking care of Nigeria?
So the reality is, out of South Africa, most of the post-production facilities are pretty scattered within Africa. It tends to be, freelancers. It tends to be companies will have a little personal setup to manage their content. And traditionally, and I think still to this day, most of the sort of higher end TV commercials or content that we're generating on the continent, people will either go to South Africa, where the post-production hubs are, or go to Europe. So certainly within the 25 years that I've been in the industry, we've been going to either South Africa or to Europe because we don't have hubs. Otherwise, we just do whatever we can with whatever we have. I think in Nairobi, we have maybe two what we would call like actual post-production facilities purpose-built post-production.
Claudia, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I would say that I can second that. My experience has particularly been in South Africa, and that we have a more, if you compare it to other regions in Africa, we have a more developed post-production industry and infrastructure here with more companies that have more experience focusing in that area. Having said that, a lot of international productions that that do their film productions in South Africa often still take their post-production overseas. So even though the film crews here are very highly advanced and very skilled, and they do a lot of ADR here, the international productions do take a lot of their post-production overseas. But our facilities here are growing in experience and most certainly work very closely with other regions in Africa.
And so, and what about the production, the film production in South Africa? Because you two are explaining that there are a lot of post-production facilities, but what about the production compared to? You're not going to compare to Nigeria, which is more than 2,000 movies a year. But what about the other region of Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I can comment on South Africa, and South Africa has a very healthy film production companies and also film production output. We do a lot of local content on predominantly on our broadcaster MultiChoice. So they'll do a lot of local content in different African languages, different South African languages. So and there's even dubbed channels of other types of content, of Hindi content, telenovelas from Turkey into local South African languages. So there is quite a healthy original film production market, and also a burgeoning dubbed market here, and a lot of very well established big film production studios, so for overseas film productions. So Cape Town Film Studios, which is a big production studio here, not far from the TransPerfect Cape Town facilities. They'll be booked out of the year through Netflix productions or other massive productions who do all of their filming here.
Good,
Yes.
good.
It's quite a vibrant industry, yeah.
Yeah, Jacques, you are visiting a lot these days the north of Africa, northwest. I mean, because I don't want to simplify it to the extreme, but let's say that for the sake of understanding for everybody, we can say that the East Africa is more Anglophone and the West Africa is more Francophone, if we want to simplify.
More or less.
More or less, exactly. It's really an oversimplification.
Just to come back on post-production, I mean,
yes,
because that's the picture that has been given by Claudia and Caroline is exactly the one of today. And what we are trying to do now at TransPerfect is to bring some capabilities in Western Africa, not too far away from Lagos, Nigeria. We are talking to people, and no later than next week, we should be able to conclude a first deal for bringing post-production capabilities in Benin, which is only 4 hours drive from Lagos. It would be a first entry. The next step, obviously, being able to bring some skills and equipments in Lagos, because South Africa is still somehow expensive for Nigerian producers, for the bulk of them. Obviously the best guy with the best quality movies, they will afford to go to South Africa or even sometimes to England. But for the majority of them is still too expensive. So we are trying to help them and bring some let's say closer to Lagos capabilities. Yeah.
I'd just like to add something just a little bit on the sort of scene in East Africa. We have a very healthy content production in our local languages because we have dialect-specific stations, for lack of a better word. In Kenya, we speak English, we speak Swahili, but we also have 47 different tribes with 47 different language groups, which break down further. So we're generating content in all these different languages. In terms of dubbing, it is also, we're accustomed to dubbing because of telenovelas, same as South Africa, telenovelas, and a lot of content coming, series statewise, but mostly Turkish, Bollywood, and telenovelas as well, dubbed to several languages here. And then there's also just, with the dialects and the telenovelas, we are used to dubbed content, but what it is, it's a sort of a lower grade. But in terms of content production and high budget, I'd say we don't have a lot of those ones. Like like South Africa, because we don't actually have those big studio setups. But we do a lot of service work. That's traditionally what Kenyans are very good at, the service work, and producing for commission projects from some of the biggest streamers.
Oh, okay. I'm back. I had a little internet issue. Great, thank you. Let's focus now on one region, because, as I said before, Nigeria is really a huge producer of movies in Africa. So, what do you think could be the help of Nigeria in the whole Africa film industry? Is it going to be a catalyst for the rest of the continent? Because so far they are the only one producing so much. Caroline, you want to start with that?
They have already created the catalyst and broken those barriers, because even in Kenya, we started to intersect with a lot of Nigerian content through our broadcasters, I'd say maybe about a decade ago. So as the telenovelas were coming in, as all this other dubbed content was coming in, we also started to see a lot of Nigerian content. So Nigerian content has always been very popular in East Africa. I've traveled to Brooklyn in the States. I find Nigerian content there. So it has traveled, and that has been a catalyst. But I'd like to say that as far as dubbing and African content is concerned, COVID-19 really was the big push that no one expected, because with no productions, we suddenly had to, localization just took these leaps and bounds. And then suddenly we started to settle within our hubs with a lot of African content that which I know probably would not have had access to traditionally. So I'd say COVID-19, as far as African content on a global scale is concerned, that was a massive catalyst. And of course, a lot of it is, Nigeria dominates, but we've seen a lot of Kenyan content, a lot of South African original titles. I've seen stuff coming from Angola, from West Africa. So we're starting to see a lot of content, and we're certainly localizing a lot of African content for the global streamers into even up to 32 language combinations, which is amazing.
And Claudia, in South Africa, do you see a lot of Nigerian content to be either way post-produced or dubbed in other languages?
I do think we definitely see some of the content entering the market. Like Caroline says, the Nigerian content, and it's wonderful. Nollywood has just expanded, and it's lovely that they've started telling their local stories in such a volume. So it has definitely traveled to South Africa. And we see it here on our channels as well. It's penetrated here. But I agree with Caroline that it is also incited a trend of increased volumes of local content and local stories. And we're seeing that more on international streaming platforms as well, where there are more authentic African stories being told, and then also being dubbed into English and into other languages.
Yeah, and you are the perfect country to dub in English for the African market, obviously. Jacques, I know you and me have been involved with the Nigerian film, how do we call that? Nigeria International Film and TV Summit, the NIFS.
Yes.
We've been in Lagos together. We've been in Cannes, where they did some event. I did some workshop for the producers. So it looks like this is becoming a huge motor for Africa, because I didn't see any Kenyans in Cannes. I didn't see any South Africans in Cannes, but I saw some Nigerians in Cannes. So they are traveling.
Yeah, especially this year. I mean, there were 20 different producers. They had a Nigerian pavilion in Cannes. I mean, this was funded by the French embassy, but they came. And I had interesting discussion, just to rebound on what we said before. There is a willingness, to really improve the stories. I mean, they are often local, but appealing for a global audience. Yeah. And there is a focus on really working on the story so that they can really be interesting for everybody in the world, and also for a technical focus on the quality of the video, obviously, but also the sound, because very often the sound is not of good quality. Looking at the productions, and a few of them understood that it was really key to have a good sound and a good quality overall. And these people will have new content on the platforms, international platforms. It was quite interesting to learn that they were also targeting theaters in the UK, theaters in Paris, not in all our country, but at least a network of theaters in let's say 10, 15, 20 places where there are more people from African origin, and it works. Like, for example, Caroline, the tribe of Judah, was a big success in London. I didn't know, So there is a willingness to really build things that can get a broader audience.
Of course. The audio post is a weak point in Nollywood, but according to what I saw and the workshop we did together, they understand that, and they are ready to step up. So, which is good. So let's talk about dubbing now, because we are all deep into the dubbing business. I was really very impressed when I went to Kalasha this year, which was in Nairobi, to see the infrastructure in Kenya, the organization. They have a film commission. I met the lady that the lawyer of the Copyright Bureau. So they have big organizations, and despite of that, the production is pretty small. But let's not talk about the production. Let's talk about the dubbing. So let's talk about the what do you do as a dubbing facility in Kenya? Which languages do you dub in? Because I know Kenya speaks a lot of languages, so everybody speaks a zillion of languages there. And so this is very interesting, because you have a huge potential there.
The one thing to understand about Nairobi is that we're a bit of a regional flashpoint. So if you're in Nairobi, you're going to intersect with quite a number of different nationalities from Africa and from around the world. You've got the UN the UNEP headquarters here and stuff like that. So what you find is that you can find a lot of languages in the city and in the environs. And then let us also not forget that we have a very huge refugee population from our neighbors. That's from Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia. We have all these communities here. So we're quite an interesting flashpoint when you come to it. In terms of dubbing from Nairobi, of course, we can dub all our 47 dialects. We do English, African English, for lack of a better terminology. We do French. We do, I think, out of Ethiopia, we're the largest dubbers of Amharic and Oromo, because of the large Ethiopian and community within, an Eritrean community within Nairobi. We do Somali,
Swahili, of course, because it's
of course, Swahili. We do generic, neutral Swahili. We do Tanzanian Swahili. We do Swahili that the Congolese speak. We do Kinyarwanda, Kirundi, Luganda. So Nairobi is an interesting hub. And then, of course, we have the technology as TransPerfect as well, to be able to, for lack of a better word, work in other studios and other places, using Studio Next. So we can actually go to these different areas and do the recordings in those places using the technology and just plug into our, headquarters. So Nairobi, from a regional point of view, has been a really great push point for Sub-Saharan Africa.
So just for our friends listening, a quick take on, you were talking about Studio Next. Studio Next is a proprietary software from TransPerfect, and it's an interactive cloud recording system. So this allows us to record talent outside of the main cities or outside of your facility. So we Studio Next has been developed in-house, and it goes hand to hand with the Dubbing Academy, which is training new talent, and teaching people how to use Studio Next and how to prepare their environment to be able to record anywhere in good conditions. So that was a little technical parenthesis. Claudia, which language do you do in South Africa? Do you have a lot? Because South Africa is the main language is English and Afrikaans. So besides these two languages, I know you dub a lot in Afrikaans, but do you have a lot of local languages?
So so the wonderful thing about Kenya, which is what Caroline touched on, is that it's sort of like a flashpoint for Africa in terms of all of these different dialects and languages and different regions of Africa. In South Africa, we have an interesting position from a dubbing perspective, because besides the local languages, and predominantly we dub into Afrikaans, isiZulu, and isiXhosa. Because those are the largest volume in speakers, but there's also 11 official dialects here. But besides that, we find ourselves to be a sort of a flashpoint for European languages, because we have such a high amount of European expats that actually live here in South Africa. So we do German and we do English for the international market. And those are some examples of where we have massive expat communities that are living here, and that allows us to be competitive with European languages. And that's outside of our South African dialects. I would say that that's really what South Africa has to offer from a dubbing perspective.
Yeah, I understand from my colleague when I was in Cape Town for the MIPCOM Africa that the prices of property, the real estate, went really up in Cape Town because Cape Town is a great city. It's nice. You have the beach, you have the ocean. It's great, but the prices went up because of this afflux of expats and mainly German. So who else is there? I understand there is a strong German community. You have also
there's a strong
community.
German community. There's a strong British community. There's a strong French community. So German and French are enough to have schools in the their own specialized schools in the region, and there's a lot of. We also get a lot of people from our neighbors, like Caroline said, from an African perspective. So that are here. But those are the strongest European, British. We were originally a British colony as well, so that's why everyone speaks English. British, American, French, German, and Dutch, I would say.
Yeah, of course. This is not the subject of this live event, but the history of this country is amazing and so complicated to follow. So
very complex and colorful.
We'll do another podcast on the history of South Africa, which is really
I just want to say one thing about Nigeria, because the reality from and I'll just bring it into the context of the language diversity of Africa. Africa has between 1,500 to 2,000 languages, so the diversity is huge. Of those languages, Nigeria alone has almost 500. So it doesn't even matter about the sizes, but the point is that we have a lot of diversity. And so we do lean from a dubbing perspective on what we would call the sort of larger language groups. But of course, and that's like Swahili, 120 million, Nigerian Pidgin or Pidgin, which is for the whole of West Africa, nearly 300 million. So you have the big language groups, and then you have the smaller language groups. And from a dubbing commercial perspective, people tend to go with the larger language groups. But from a educational and public awareness point of view, people distill to the other languages depending on the different groups that they want to target. So from a Nigerian perspective, we're already dubbing in Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani, Nigerian Pidgin, and we've also been able to do some French there because we can get from Benin and other places, French speakers there. But the reality is that we can do so much more depending on what language combinations someone would want.
Sure. So, Jacques, I know you are exploring also the north of Africa. Because you are the business development guy here. So, what are your perspectives? What are you looking for? What are your most promising markets there?
If you allow me, I would rather speak about a big Eastern Africa country, Ethiopia, and another segment that we are working on at TransPerfect, which is the restoration and digitization of archives, because in most countries in Africa, they have archives, tapes. All television channels have tapes since 50 years that have not been digitized. So this is a enormous treasury, of historical content that can be bring to TV for people to watch and learn.
And you are talking about original language, obviously. Well,
yes, I mean, yeah. In most cases, this content is either in French, in English, or Portuguese. But Ethiopia, because that's the first country where we're going to start this work for a regional channel, the second largest region of Ethiopia, which is Amhara. And so we're going to have a team working on these archives and putting back on TVs. But there are many other countries, Nigeria being the first, obviously, for the catalog of films that they have, because this film industry started a long time ago. Now it's famous because of Nollywood, but it started a long time ago. They have something like 20,000 reels, so 5,000 to 6,000 films in stock that nobody can see because it's just in a warehouse, being deteriorating day after day. So we are working on that and trying to bring back this history to live in a digital form. So that's quite interesting as another market, especially in Africa. In Europe, in the States, it has been done already, but not in Africa.
So that's your next target. That's very interesting.
Yes.
And we were just talking a few weeks ago. I was hosting a discussion with the French director Christophe Gans and my colleague Benjamin Halimi from Paris, who is leading our restoration classic group. We were talking about how he restored just recently the Brotherhood of the Wolf, in French, Le Pacte des Loups, which is a cult movie, which is now from 2001 or 2002. And so 20 plus years ago, they did the restoration. And it was fascinating to understand this French director explaining to us how the process was and what you can do now compared to what was possible 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So the technology is really booming. And this is a perfect segue for my next chapter, the role of the technology in our industry. So, Caroline, you were touching on Studio Next, which is a remote recording system. Everybody is going to talk about AI because I know somebody is going to ask, what do we do with AI? Because this is the next subject. And I was in MIPCOM in Cannes 2 weeks ago, and everybody was talking about AI. So any of you have an idea about AI? I know we are not using it, and we are very careful and diplomatic about that because there is a strong legal aspect. But besides the danger of copying voices of already well-known people, AI can help in a certain ways to organize your work, to to sort a bunch of files in post-production. So let's not talk about AI as a copy of a voice from somebody famous, because this is illegal and we don't do that. But Claudia, you want to pick up on that? Because the technology is going to arrive everywhere in the world, obviously, you know.
True, yeah. I think that there is a lot of fear and a lot of fear around how it's going to be used, and from a legal aspect. But from an opportunity aspect, especially in Africa, I feel there is a real opportunity for it to improve workflows, and also um, you know, help us create more sustainable business models around underserviced languages, like those languages, not the big languages like Caroline was referring to, that everybody dubs in. But I feel that the AI technology could create, AI assisted workflows in which we could bring perhaps the price point of developing underserviced languages, well, smaller, with smaller speakers, bring that into a more attractive business model reality. And that's really exciting, because I feel that that leans into a trend of, hyper localization, hyper personalization in content, especially when you're going into regions. So for us, we view it as an opportunity to unlock market share in local dialects, once we've understood how to use it as an assist, as an assist. Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly to the point, because I was giving a presentation in Paris a few months ago, and somebody obviously in the audience, a group of actors, were telling me, yes, but we are going to lose our jobs, and I told them, yes and no. Maybe some job will disappear, but will be converted in something else. Like at the time of machine translation, before the machine translation, we didn't have a post-edit QCer, but that's a job that didn't exist. And now you have a new job, which is QCing what the machine translation is doing. So you have an emergence of new jobs. And I was telling them, a lot of contents are there, and they are on shelves, and they will never see the day. They will never go on screen unless we are able to really use different processes. Because if not, they are going to stay on the shelf forever, and nobody will see it. So we have a question on the screen. Hi, everyone. Question: are there specific AI-driven tools or innovation that could improve efficiency, quality, and even cultural? Absolutely. In dubbing for emerging market. I can tell you that, let's just talk about Studio Next. We are going to implement glossaries, and we have already glossaries. In terms of efficiency, this platform is counting the number of lines that the actors are recording. So you have a countdown. So let's say if an actor has 20 lines or whatever line to whatever number to record, every time the actor will record a line, you will see 19, 18, 17, 16. So the machine, and this is a kind of AI, this is very simplified AI. It's not a generative AI, but it's already a basic AI that will prevent everybody from missing lines, because we have been there for a long time. And I never did a project without a missing line or two missing lines. We are always missing something. And with this kind of system, it's unlikely that you are going to miss a line, because this is a very basic AI. Cultural accuracy, yes, absolutely, because we have developed glossaries that can be used in the system. So, like you search on Google Maps, or not Google Maps, Google about a country, this is going to be integrated out in our tools and will help. Caroline, you want to add something on the use of technology for?
I'd like to say, as Claudia said, a lot of these tools, AI is sort of a buzzword, and there's a lot of sort of negativity attached to it. But if you actually just look at the way the internet works and all of this stuff, it's been going on for a long time. So what I feel AI brings is it's a productivity tool for us. From a dubbing perspective, it will really take away some of the more laborious aspects of the work, so we can concentrate on the other aspects of the work, like the quality, and also just dealing with the cultural, like you brought up, cultural accuracy, dealing with nuances. Because at the end of the day, dubbing is about localizing to culture. It's not just wordplay. You've got to deal with nuances. You've got to deal with regional differences. You've got to deal even with community differences. So I don't believe AI is there yet. Maybe when I'm out of the business, maybe one day, but I don't think we're there yet. The human aspect cannot be the human aspect of dubbing still relies a lot on the human touch. So
Absolutely.
the tool, it's a tool, it's a good tool. Some of them are good tools and will help us do better jobs, but in terms of cultural accuracy, nuances, and stuff like that, the humans are still required, because these are linguistic issues. These are cultural issues, and it's not going to be picked up necessarily from a tool.
Yeah, and this is not the event to talk about specifically about AI, and we can do another event about that. We did one already last year, but we can certainly do another one based on the fact that the technology is really moving forward very fast. But I do a lot of conferences about AI, and I always say AI is a toolbox. In the toolbox, you have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have a saw. And if you want to put a nail on the wall, you are not going to take the screwdriver, you are going to take the hammer. If you want to screw a screw, you take the screwdriver, you don't take the hammer. So every tool is specific, and the trick is to find the right tool. So that's it. And the way of using it, it will be key. Jacques, obviously, if you are concentrating these days on restoration and accelerating all this reuse of old content, the technology has a very important role to play.
Yes, I mean, yeah, basically for films, the most important tool is a high quality scanner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there is still a lot of manual work for reparation, and when you want once digitized, if you want really to get the perfect quality, like you mentioned Christophe Gans, the restoration of the Parc des Loups, then you need to do a lot of digital repair as well. Once you have the digital file, this is the second level. To bring it back to something comparable to a film that would be shooted today.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's basically, I think we try to be present, in these three business lines: localization, to do even better things, new thing, taking advantage of AI, post-production. There is an opportunity for us, to do more and more, because as we said before, there is very little that is done of great quality on the continent, except South Africa, but mostly from people coming from abroad and not coming from the continent. And restoration of archives is also an interesting topic indeed.
Yeah, and after what you said, the market is growing. We have more and more content to be taken out of the shelf and to restore, etc. So the technology is here to stay and is going to develop more and more. So we'll see how it goes. So let's talk about now the future of African cinema, TV series, because obviously. And I have a question mainly for Caroline and Claudia. In your dubbing business, are you dubbing more of the American, European content, or are you dubbing more of African content in the other local languages? Caroline, you want to start?
It's a combination. For us, from our hubs, because we are a fulfillment partner for Netflix, Amazon. We're doing mostly the localization from the subs and also dubbing. But the beautiful part of what has happened in the past couple of years is like Anikolope, which is a Nigerian film. It was shot in Yoruba, and so we dubbed it to English. And so what localization what has changed in terms of localization is that the content creators can shoot in their authentic languages. We don't have to use what we call, the colonial languages. We can shoot in Swahili, we can shoot in Luo, whatever language, and then we can localize it to European languages or to Asian languages. So that's a big thing that's changed from a creativity point of view. So we're finding that we're dealing with a lot of indigenous African languages, and then we dub to English or to French or the other way. And then from a more local point of view, we do a lot of the dialects, even in Nigeria. But what's for me the biggest, like the most exciting thing has been to be getting content. Like we got something in Sheng recently, which is a Kenyan sort of urban street language, and then we were doing dubs to other languages. So that's what's exciting from a creativity point of view, and that's what's exciting about what's happening in Africa now, that we can film and be authentic in our languages, reflecting our culture, and then we dub to Mandarin or English.
And the potential is huge, because obviously it's even more than Hollywood, because the number of movies that are produced in Africa is humongous. Claudia, what's your experience in South Africa?
Yeah, I agree with Caroline. There is a new trend of developing more content within local languages, because there exists now an infrastructure locally to dub them into other languages, which many not so long ago they didn't exist, that infrastructure. So those opportunities are opening up. In South Africa, the dubbing industry, because we focus so much on European languages, we're still getting a lot of content from Turkey, from Bollywood, from all over the place, that goes into English, and then we are also seeing it going into our local South African dialects for television broadcast here. So I would say there is a trend, and it's an exciting trend, as Caroline says. But the predominant work that we're still doing is international content coming here, being dubbed either for streaming services, or then being dubbed into our local dialects to be distributed.
So for you, it's the majority is coming from outside and in South Africa. And Jacques, any comment on more the north of Africa? What do they do in Morocco, or what is the trend there?
Honestly, I'm not too much aware of the Morocco film production, and that's something that because we have studios in Morocco, but we do mostly French dubbing, from international content, going there to get a cheaper labor cost. So the actual local production, we don't do a lot. So,
yeah, we are not.
We shall get a little bit, of Arabic content to dub in French, but that's not the majority. Majority of what we do there is coming from the US, from Europe, Latin America, things like that. Yeah.
I just want to underline that in our studio in Morocco, we do French content, which, as you said, it's a cheaper cost there, but this is done also by a French community. Most of the actors are French, and so we want obviously to keep a good quality. It's like when Claudia does German in Cape Town, we are using native speakers, obviously, to dub in the languages. Just a little parenthesis. We are 45 minutes into it, and this was like a 5-minute discussions. So let's finish with the regional differences. So Africa is really actually, I was born in Africa, by the way, but I moved in France pretty early in age. So for me, when I started to go back to Africa, this was like a return to my my heritage. You know, it was very funny. So regional differences. What is the film consumption habits? What's the differences between, let's say, Kenya, Africa, South Africa, Western Africa for Jacques? Did you see a major differences in film consumption because of the platform, because of Netflix, Amazon, etc.? Caroline, you want to start with that?
Yeah,
Quickly.
so I'll go as quickly as I can. For Nigeria, certainly, big screen is still big. And in fact, there's a lot of investment in big screen, whereas in Kenya, I think we have like 6 to 12 in the entire country. That's shrinking. Also cost. Big screen, Nigeria, they built an appetite for their own content.
Yeah.
And what I find in like Kenya is that we're still trying to build that to be as effective, and that's why they're so much more prolific. So they still have big screen there, and of course people are using streaming platforms and stuff like that. In Kenya, yes, streamers are big, but they're not huge. It's still free-to-air broadcasting is the easiest reach, and I think that in terms of broadcasting, it's still big in Africa because of the cost of data. So while streamers are making their breakthroughs, the reality is that data is expensive, and that's, I think, something that really affects how we consume content in Africa.
And to just follow what Caroline said, now in Kenya you have a brand new 5.1 mixing room to help to mix higher quality content, and in South Africa we are going to do the same thing very soon. So we want to have 5.1 rooms a little bit everywhere to be able to provide to our client the best mixing possible. So Claudia, what about the film consumption in South Africa? Regional differences. I mean, South Africa is already a big country with already regional differences.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Caroline is right. You know, it depends very much on access to data, access to internet, whether or not someone is going to consume on a streaming platform versus free to air. Free to air is still big in South Africa as well. Multi-choice and DSTV and all their various packages are very large in South Africa. We find people are consuming in South Africa a lot of content in their original languages because we produce a lot of original content. And there are, streaming services like Showmax and EVOD that have more local content and locally produced content on that are competing in the market with the Netflixes and the Disneys and the Prime. So obviously there is an appetite to consume our original content, and therefore we have these sort of local streaming services. But the regional differences in how people consume content have a lot to do with access to infrastructure and data. Just as similar to what Caroline said.
Jacques, I let you finish. You are the business development guy. So what are your perspectives for Africa?
They are really big because it's a huge continent with 44 countries and 1.5 billion people. So But just to make the link with what we just say, the consumption is very much linked to how much you can spend also on content, on the access, and then on the content itself. So people who can afford, they will go to pay TV, they will go to Netflix. People who cannot, they will watch TV, free TV, and and the young people consume a lot on YouTube. This is free. I mean, the access, they can get it from Wi-Fi in the schools or hotspots, things like that. So it's really depending on how much you can afford for content, which is a little bit unfair because the content on Netflix or multi-choice is going to be better quality than what. But I mean, yeah. So that's the reality, and the growth by definition there will be growth in the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And that's why we're investing in Africa more and more with new location. We are looking at Western Africa, Senegal, Benin, Ivory Coast, Lagos to expand. Kenya, we're already there, and South Africa as well. But there are many other places where step by step we will invest and be present for sure.
Great. So time to finish. We are 52 minutes into this discussion. This was great. I thank you guys very much for helping me to explain to our friend what is Africa. Everybody knows what is Africa, but an overview of our business in Africa, the potential with the restoration, the archive, the business of dubbing, the business of post-production. So thank you very much, everybody, and see you on the next Art of Dubbing series. We'll communicate the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.